our concentration was so strong that we were kind of hypnotized ourselves and sort of in the subconscious or whatever, riding that wave. I mean, I know somebody said that Jim rode the music like a horse or something and could feel free. But we all looked like we were completely possessed to me.
Most of the great bands today serve a double function. First, they're self-contained musical units, wringing as much sheer sound from their amplifiers as an audience can bear. Second, they're conveyors of energy, wizards if you will, restoring to modern music some of the magic it traded for the finesse of a concert hall. Most kids today treat their instruments the way their older brothers treated their cars, as sort of sacred extensions of their personality, not just machines. So a successful rock group has to combine technical virtuosity with a savage kind of grace. Superstars affect the transference of energy. They've got to be erotic in the widest, wildest sense of that word. At their best, the Doors are certainly that. There's nothing superfluous about their sound, just 3 instruments and a voice, tough, tight, together. John Densmore on drums, Robbie Krieger on guitar, organist Ray Manzarek fills in the bottom, and Jim Morrison, the lead singer, seems to sit astride the music, his body amplified by the sound. To some critics, Morrison is guilty of gross excess. They see him as a sort of latter-day Isadora Duncan without a bosom worth bearing. But when the timing and the tempo are right, Jim Morrison can transform rock into something more than words and music, something magic. Of course, it all depends on your willingness to be spellbound. You might call him theatrical, or you might call him religious. But he's more than your folks bargained for when they bought your first transistor radio, and that's enough.
Long before there was an anything, there was the radio, a large piece of furniture that the whole family would gather around to listen to music, news, and entertainment shows. But radios, like telephone lines, used vacuum tube amplifiers, which were big, cumbersome, and unreliable. So in 1945, a group of 3 inventors from Bell Laboratories were brought together to come up with a different way to amplify electrical current. Almost 2 years later, the transistor was born. Patented on June 30th, 1948, a spokesperson predicted that the transistor, quote, may have far-reaching significance in electronics and electrical communication, end quote. And indeed it did. By 1954, the transistor had made radios compact and portable. You could now take your news and music on the go. By the 50s and 60s, transistor radios were everywhere. While the transistor would later give way to the Walkman and the MP3 player, the idea of taking information and entertainment out of the living room all started with the transistor.
It made music portable and ushered in the age of rock.
Not a coincidence that the transistor radio came onto the scene and became popular right around the time that rock and roll was also kind of taking the country by storm.
For McGuinn, freedom came when he got the first transistor radio for his 13th birthday, a Regency TR-1G.
I only had the radio for a short time before I heard Elvis. It was a game changer for me.
His 14th birthday present, a guitar. A decade later, he and the Byrds transformed Bob Dylan's folk classic, Mr. Tambourine Man, into rock and roll.
It's hard to say whether or not I would have done what I do now if it hadn't been for the transistor radio. I really loved it. It was my favorite gadget.
Calling Dick Tracy. Calling Dick Tracy. Here being assembled in Indianapolis is the next thing in size to that wristwatch radio Dick has been sporting in the comic strips. Electrical circuits whose complex wiring is literally printed on boards are one of the factors making possible a radio so small that while it can't quite be strapped to the wrist, it can be slipped easily into an ordinary suit coat pocket. Even more important than printed circuits in space conservation are the minute transistors, which perform the same function as much larger vacuum tubes, and yet draw only a fraction of the current required by tubes. Thus, they not only take up much less room themselves, but permit the use of much smaller batteries as well. With components all attached to the circuit boards, here's how the connections are soldered on a tiny Ferris wheel that carefully dips them in a solder bath. A cleaning bath removes excess flux, after which the subassembly is ready for the first of several electrical tests. Further compactness has been accomplished through the speakers that go into these tiny sets, speakers which meet the space limitations and yet are as efficient and distortion-free as though several times their size. These components were designed and built in Illinois. The printed circuits came from a firm in New Jersey, the transistors from Texas, other parts from specialists in Michigan, Wisconsin, and right here in Indiana. So the Regency radios being produced in this factory are actually the end product of a great many other factories too. In fact, if you investigated thoroughly enough, you'd probably find that half the industrial working force in the nation contributed in one way or another to the making of these little radios.
When I was back there in seminary school, there was a person there who put forth the proposition that you can petition the Lord with prayer. Petition the Lord with prayer. Petition the Lord with prayer. You cannot petition the Lord with prayer. Can you give me sanctuary? I must find a place to hide, a place for me to hide. Can you find me soft asylum? I can't make it anymore. The man is at the door. Peppermint mini skirts, chocolate candy, champion socks, and a girl named Sandy. There's only four ways to get unraveled. One is to sleep and the other is travel. One is a bandit up in the hills. One is to love your neighbor till.
I definitely feel that there are two worlds of teenagers. I myself have a younger sister who's 15, and I know that her world is completely different from mine. The younger ones seem to be living in a world of tension and great anxiety, partly due to the world situation that is existing today. They're in a rush for everything. They start drinking at parties when they're in 8th grade. They consider sex nothing at all.
There is a teenage world. And, you know, if the adults don't like it, that's only because they don't want to be a part of it. That's their tough luck.
And all of a sudden we have a feeling of being a generation and having some sort of bond with every other teenager on the street.
Maybe I feel it's different just because I'm in it. I've never experienced another generation. But I do feel we'll have something to say. We'll make a gigantic splash in the world to come.
His wife gets home. Catacombs, nursery bones, winter women, growing stones, carrying babies to the river. Streets and shoes, avenues, leather riders,
These are the remains of what was once a beautiful city. But the mind of man is as rich in evil as it is in good, and the same inventiveness which blessed us with insulin, electricity, the arts and engineering miracles of all sorts, has also cursed us with the sword, the gun, the bomb, and